Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info. A little bit of unusual set of circumstances here for a couple of reasons. But first and foremost, with the rain that has postponed the race until I believe it was 1 p.m. tomorrow Eastern time, so 10 a.m. Pacific time here. So ordinarily, I usually do these shows after the conclusion of the Cup Series race. But obviously, with all the everything that's happened, really just yesterday alone, we'll go ahead and do a show today and kind of cover all of that action and discuss that. Certainly today, there will be another show after whenever the Cup Series race is completed. Hopefully they get it in tomorrow. Then I'll be on after I get back from work. I work a regular 9 to 5 Monday to Friday here, so we'll just kind of play it by ear. And of course, stay tuned to my Twitter at LastGroundBrock for more information on that. And we'll do another show on that. So yes, before we really get into the meat of everything else from the Xfinity and the Truck Series race, I again want to offer my condolences to the friends, the families, and the fans of John Wes Townley. Terrible news, sickening, really, that came through just this morning that John Wes Townley was shot and killed during some kind of altercation yesterday. Another person was caught in the crossfire. Very little information that I can verify has been coming out. The details are very sketchy, so I'm not going to propagate anything else on that. Hopefully, we'll find out more information here in the days and weeks ahead here. John is a driver I never had the chance to meet up with, but unusual significance to this being just I believe 6 years after his only Truck Series win in the Zaxby's truck at Las Vegas. A driver that perhaps I mean it's always difficult with particular drivers where they have a sponsor and just a lot of ambition and trying to get their way into the Cup Series. He did attempt a Cup Series race in 2012 for Go Fast Racing, was swapped out for another driver, and unfortunately never had another chance at it. More often is known for his runs in the Xfinity Series, and Truck Series, and ARCA as well. And in a lot of those races, he's filled any number of crash montages online. Unfortunately, got kind of the reputation of being one of these drivers that was involved in a lot of accidents. And also in a challenging time in the Xfinity Series where the wins were gobbled up by, again, a lot of Cup Series regulars. And, the best finish they could really hope for was kind of a mid-pack run, kind of like what we saw out of when we were talking about Eric McClure recently, very much in the same group there. But again, it was, there was a lot of investment that the family had put into the sport, trying to make something happen. Unfortunately, didn't necessarily get the results that they had hoped for. Although, again, you win any race in the top three series, that's certainly worthy of note. And the fact that he was able to pull off that Vegas win after starting on the outside pole those few years ago is certainly worthy of acclaim. So, again, this definitely puts a cloud over things here. And again, condolences to his family, his friends, and his fans as well. So this also coming on the heels, the other news that had come up earlier this week, of course, the news of speaking of ARCA with the passing of Briggs Cunningham III, who himself was very big in developing the ARCA careers of a number of drivers, particularly Chase Briscoe and Parker Kligerman, who at times had utterly dominant periods in their career. He passed away earlier this week. I was mentioning him on the starting grid video that was posted earlier this morning. So, again, definitely condolences to his family as well. Kligerman had a paint scheme dedicated to him in the Truck Series race yesterday. Chase Briscoe is going to carry his name on his car for the rest of the season in the number 14 as he completes his Cup Series Rookie of the Year season. So, a lot going on this side here, and I don't mean to front load it all with that at the very beginning of the show here, but it would certainly be remiss without mentioning that right at the top of the show here. With the Cup Series race rained out for tomorrow, we'll definitely talk about the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series race yesterday. We'll also do some trivia here on the show, maybe a bit of a shorter show here today. And then, of course, the Cup Series action we discuss more at length whenever the race is completed. Again, the weather looks very touch and go. We could be in very much a similar situation to what we had at Texas last year, where the race was completed on like a Wednesday night. Talladega not having lights is going to certainly be a continued hot button issue this week. The logistics and the costs of doing so are certainly the biggest obstacle there. Obviously, Daytona has lights, so the super speedways have been able to get that arrangement there. But of course, we're talking about a much larger track. And I'm not sure what resources they have available, although they have done a lot to improve the infield of the track in recent years. So again, there's certainly much to be talked about there. It definitely seems like with the dates that they have, either a late spring date or an early fall date, definitely makes it more likely to have a lot of heavy rain. Perhaps should be something that be looked at a bit more clearly in that case. Not sure what traction is going to come of that, but maybe races like this are going to make people consider it, especially where it seemed like the sun was starting to kind of come out here. I was kind of expecting coming into today that they were going to at least try to get it to halfway, knowing that the rest of the week's forecast was looking pretty bad. Things change by the day. The further you get out, the less accurate a forecast is. At least that seems to be the general rule of thumb. I'm no expert in that regard, but that's been my understanding. So hopefully we'll have some more information here, and then when the Cup Series race does get in, of course we'll be talking about that when it does get completed as soon as it can. So basically 3 straight shows here are going to be some distance after the actual conclusion of the Cup Series race. But I appreciate you guys tuning in today. So we'll definitely talk about Xfinity trucks, since by then it'll be multiple days at that point, and definitely want to discuss that while it is still fresh in that sense. So on the different races from this weekend. So again, much more positive news really from the Saturday races. We saw a really unprecedented double feature of first-time winners. Obviously, when we were at Las Vegas last week, we were able to see the first win for Christian Eckes in the Truck Series, leading a Thor Sport 1-4. Josh Berry winning his second race in the Xfinity Series and first driving in relief of Michael Annett in the number 1 car. This time around, even more remote possibilities, both kind of a product of a very significant number of accidents that were happening, particularly among the leaders, and eliminating a lot of the contenders that ordinarily you would expect to be at the front of the field for an Xfinity or a Truck Series race. And that was certainly the case this time around. Both of our last place finishers not involved in those accidents. Engine failure has been a very common reason out for a number of drivers at these races at Talladega, despite the number of accidents. Even Bobby Allison's accident in 1987 was actually preceded by an engine failure by Chet Phillip, and Phillip was actually your last place finisher in that. So no matter how early a wreck happens or how big it is, there's still been a number of times where it's usually been an engine failure or something like that bookmarking the field, and that was certainly the case for both of the races this time around. On the Truck Series side, it created a situation where the streak of consecutive different last place finishers in the Truck Series is now at an end. So we will not see a tiebreaker on the bottom 5s or bottom 10s with everybody with 1 last place finish, which has still never happened in NASCAR history. At least is going to be somebody with 2 last place finishes. With now 2 races left to go in the season, Jack Wood is now the unlikely, perhaps, last place leader, despite having only 10 starts this season. Driver with the most last place finishes has traditionally been the person that's been leading the standings, but he does leave himself open to somebody else that has more bottom 5s or bottom 10s entering the competition and actually taking the lead simply by finishing last at either the final 2 rounds at Martinsville or at Phoenix. We will certainly find out about that. Phoenix, incidentally, which is now which is of course the finale for the season, just announced today that they had sold out their grandstands, the hillside, and the infield for Sunday. I have applied for my credentials for that race, and I already picked up Last Bro's ticket a while back. So we are already set to cover that event to find out whatever happens in the last place contention of that event there. So we'll certainly find out. We're going to see which last place contender is going to be in that event, and that'll certainly be one to look forward to. It could be very possible that the name of the driver is going to change at the very last second, and we'll certainly be there to track that story among the many others during championship weekend. But Jack Wood with an engine failure just after getting the lucky dog seemed to be dropping off the pace in the early laps. Came down pit road and ended up being pushed behind the wall in the first 25 laps of the race. He completed 23 of those laps before the engine failure. And then the many multi-truck pileups, there were at least two after that point, really cleared down the field quite a bit in the final stretch to the finish. Brian Dozit with a bit of a scary accident there off of turn 2, head on into the inside wall. They were honoring the life of a fallen crew member themselves, and Brent Cole on the hood of their number 28. Unfortunately, Dozit with a very hard accident there off of turn 2 to eliminate them from competition, finishing next to last in the lineup. Lawless Allen, Parker Kligerman, and Chris Wright rounding out your bottom 5 from the Truck Series race. This certainly brings about one of the biggest controversies that certainly happened from that event, and that being, again, the big pileup that knocked Kligerman out of the race, that being with Jennifer Jo Cobb. Now, as you all know, I'm certainly a big advocate of these small teams. I'm willing to, give them as much latitude as they can. I know that they have very difficult circumstances that they have to deal with from one week to the next. Maybe don't have the right resources, maybe don't have the right equipment or anything. But much like what we saw with Sheldon Creed in the Chandler Smith accident in Las Vegas, I'm not exactly sure what was going on with the number 10 there during the Truck Series accident there. It did seem to really bring back memories of the Larry Gunselman and Dario Franchitti accident in 2008, which I believe was about the same corner, if memory serves. A really scary situation there and an unnecessary accident, frankly, that eliminated Kligerman from the wreck. Kligerman had done a great job avoiding the accident. Managed to slow his truck down and just getting onto the edge of the grass there, avoiding all the trucks, was just about to get going again. And the 10 just sails right through the middle of that wreck 18 seconds after the wreck had actually started and several seconds after the caution had actually dropped and piled into the 75, knocking both of them out of the race. And I do stand by saying it's unfortunate for both of them that they had that wreck happen, that they were not able to get a good finish out there. Kligerman, of course, a past race winner at Talladega, and Jennifer Jo Cobb being, again, one of these independents that really counts on a great run at these super speedways to help them through the season. We saw this out of Norm Benning, where he was able to kind of keep his nose clean despite a penalty for switching lanes at one point and finish in the 17th spot, which was actually better than his run on the dirt track at Knoxville, which also had a big field clearing wreck in that one as well. So kudos to Norm Benning for the good run, but unfortunate for both Cobb and Kligerman. And I haven't heard anything more from Cobb's team on to what exactly happened, if it was a failure in the truck or if there was a lack of communication or what. But the optics are certainly not helpful. And certainly the phrase Days of Thunder trending on Twitter in the aftermath of the accident seemed to indicate just how absurd all of that looked. At the one hand, avoiding all the other trucks that were being involved in the accident, but on the other hand, driving clear down the banking and seemingly aiming for the 75 there and knocking the entire, the right rear wheel off the 75 there. Just terrible. And again, a couple of teams and drivers that can't afford to tear up equipment and can't afford to make mistakes like that. I do believe that by all indications, it seems at least that was a mistake, maybe a mechanical issue. It's really hard to tell, but I know it's unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. I'm not happy for anybody that was involved in that. A lot of equipment gets torn up in these races, and when it's something that's some degree avoidable, and especially between drivers that can't afford to tear up equipment, I think that makes it that much worse. And so, unfortunately, both of them ending up back in the lineup there at the conclusion of that race. Another bizarre incident there ensued after that, where you had the situation with Grant Enfinger throwing a block on Sheldon Creed, another battle among the leaders, causing another huge wreck, during which our friend Keith McGee, who had worked his way with a professional gambler to get in the 49 truck just last week, this time around driving for another team, just avoided the big pileup there, Dawson Cram's injury, the number 41. He made it through, was actually challenging for and did get a top 10 at the end of this race. One of many surprising runs out of a lot of the underdogs that we see out there. Plenty of things to certainly talk about from that. And this leads us really to the final sprint to the finish among the different drivers. Tate Fogleman in the final laps. Seemed to have one of the most surprising trucks out there, even before his ultimate victory, taking his first win here just a few weeks after being a NASCAR feature here on the website. Fogleman actually had a lot of damage to both ends of his truck from one of the accidents, but it was running about the sixth spot there for a lot of the final laps. It seemed to be leading a second pack that was having trouble catching up to a lot of the leaders. Finally was able to, and had slotted himself in there and was starting to make some moves. We also saw some great efforts from Brett Holmes, the number 32, right after his career best finish at Las Vegas. Him, the number 32 entry, actually pushing drivers to the lead and getting himself up front as well. Looked like both of them were going to be big factors in the finish. Of course, the accident with Enfinger ends up kind of shuffling the order once more, and then another pile up there towards the very end of the race as one by one. People are kind of running like a moon car race there towards the finish with people spinning this way or that way. But Fogleman did a great job working his way up through the pack, seemed to have the right moves at the right time. Just when John Hunter Nemechek finally got his legs back under him and was getting right past him in the tri-oval, another bit of contact there as Fogleman was heading to the line. Tyler Hill, who just last week tore up their only mile-and-a-half truck that they had left over after an incident with Chris Wright on the last lap, comes back into the picture there. He is all over Fogleman coming to the stripe and finishes a career best second there, and a best ever for the team, best ever for Tyler. Fantastic effort for him as well. Very nearly got the victory at the same time. There were some indications that there was going to be a possible yellow line penalty. Obviously, with the number 12 going below the line there, entering the tri-oval. NASCAR deemed that pass legal ultimately and handed the victory, of course, with Fogleman. So again, raises a lot of questions about what the hell we saw last year with Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and Matt DiBenedetto as to who was and who was not penalized during that entire sequence of events at the same point on the track. Once again, the yellow line rule has no business being in NASCAR. And perhaps in these next few days, maybe that could be reevaluated a little bit more, but I'm not holding my breath on that one. But at the end of the day, in this one, Fogleman ends up having the victory, first truck across the line. Second victory for Young's Motorsports at Talladega. His teammate Spencer Boyd, who won a couple of years ago, also in the top 10 after flirting with last place in the early laps, losing the draft and losing a lap in the process, getting back into contention again. Again, this team perhaps is one that you have to really kind of keep an eye on when the trucks come to the super speedways in Talladega in particular. In Boyd's case, he was able to prevail, win a yellow line penalty, actually fell his direction with Johnny Sauter being eliminated and getting Boyd the victory that way. So again, the rule giveth and the rule taketh away, I guess, in this case. But very different set of circumstances in this one where you just had an absolute knockdown drag out to the finish. I'm not sure if I agree with the thought that every vehicle that wins Talladega should look completely beat to heck, as was expressed on social media there after the race. I think really a lot of the best racing at Talladega is when you have a lot of near misses, like we saw in the first part of the truck race. You had a lot of times where drivers seemed to be on the absolute edge of control and were actually able to kind of reel it back in. Some of the racing like we saw in the Cup Series race back at Daytona in August until the last 40 laps. It seems like in the first half of these races, if you want to see actual good super speedway racing, it seems like the trend is to watch the first part of it there before everything always invariably bubbles over and people make one mistake or another, or the air does one thing or another, and leads to a big pileup in that process there. But yeah, again, Todd Gilliland looked really good in this race, but unfortunately ends up back in the third spot there with a bit of damage to the front of the truck. Corey Roper with a sixth place finish. Good follow-up to his great run at Daytona. Danny Bone in the top 10. Mentioned Keith McGee in the Cram Racing Enterprises team. According to Cram, it was a last-minute deal to get the Toyota out there. Typically, they run Chevrolets for the team. No plans to run the Toyota at other races at this moment. Hopefully, it'll be at Phoenix here coming up there. They're still looking for some sponsorship going forward, but hopefully we'll have some more information on the number 41 here in the weeks coming up ahead. They actually withdrew from the Las Vegas race before we got back out there last week. So it's good to see them just back in action in any form in that sense too. So again, great effort for both driver and team in that sense. Jordan Anderson, I didn't really mention him, finishing in the 11th spot at the beginning of a double header for him. running both the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series race, 550 combined miles, or at least scheduled miles, between the two races. Really exciting to see him get a good run out there. Brent Holmes, despite some damage at the very end of the race, finishing in the 15th spot. And again, Norm Benning, from going from next to last on the grid to finishing in 17th, was never warned by NASCAR to keep up his minimum speed. He did have that switching lanes penalty from what I could hear over the radio, but good for him to get a good run out there. Especially, again, the super speedways, you try to get the best run you can, and sometimes the name of the game just is survival. And it was certainly the case there for the number 6 team. Kudos as well to the Cross-Eyed Owl Brewery that was sponsoring both him and the number 52 for Joey Gase in the Xfinity Series race. I never really heard of this brand before, but kudos to them for sponsoring 2 of NASCAR's underfunded teams. So I don't mind giving them a shout out here on the show here. Kudos to both of those efforts there for being able to get some support and actually getting some top 20 runs in both cases. We'll talk about the Xfinity Series race next, of course, with all of that. Willie Allen came back into the Truck Series for the first time in many years. We mentioned drivers that you kind of see that kind of get shaken out from one time or another. Allen certainly one of those. Had originally driven some Xfinity races for Tommy Joe Martins back during some very difficult years in Martin's career. But this time around, driving for the Rackley War team, finishing in the 18th spot after starting 30th. Didn't really see much of him in the broadcast. Finished a few laps down, but kudos to him for getting a good finish out of that and not being the last car feature there. Let's see. Here we go. So talking about, let's see, Truck Series 1. If you have any other questions for the Truck Series race, definitely let me know here. I'll definitely talk about that. It was great writing about Tate Fogleman, even though he had the last place run a few weeks ago, at least talking about his father, Jay Fogleman, which is probably one of the most prolific diecasts you can find on eBay these days, the Innkeeper number 5 Buick. Somebody pulled up a fantastic statistic that the number 68, its best run before Brandon Brown started running it, was an 11th place run by Jay Fogleman years ago. So kudos to the statistic on that there. Really interesting to see. And of course, we'll talk about that in our Xfinity section, which will be coming up right now. So again, on the Xfinity side, the other leg of your first-time winners, Brandon Brown, fantastic run and a great effort for the BMS racing team. The Brandon built effort, really trying to get the best run that they can. Obviously, the viral video that was posted earlier this year before the Texas race showing that they had sponsorship issues, despite the fact that they've been outside playoff contenders, much like Gray Galding and these other efforts here that have really tried to kind of knock on the door and slipping their way into the playoffs. We've even seen that, of course, out of Jeremy Clements this year through just raw consistency. Brown missed the cut this year, but despite that, has continued as ever to try to get his first win. He got his first last place finish in Michigan just a few weeks ago, much like we had the issue with Tate Fogleman, and comes back out here at the Super Speedway. I believe he had, I'm trying to remember, at Daytona in February, didn't he have an incident on pit road or something? Because he seemed to have a good run there, and then something kind of went sideways there. But Brown has always been a factor in these super speedways and really trying to capitalize it, as drivers are known to do, certainly at Talladega. And that was certainly the case once again here this time in the Saturday race. Brown finding himself in the right place at the right time when darkness was approaching, despite all these massive pileups here that ended up drawing the race well past its original scheduled conclusion. But this time around, race cut short after 107 laps. Brown taking the victory, absolutely overjoyed over the radio. Congratulations to him on the thing. Just a great kid out there, great team. And much like with Fogleman and the Truck Series effort there with Young's Motorsports, good to see them just get some more exposure out there. I am still very disappointed in what we saw from Fox on Saturday during the Truck Series race, that they cut away so unceremoniously after the race. I know TV contracts are what they are. I know these wrecks happened that pushed the race past its deadline. And I know that Fox did actually take efforts to get the interviews with Tate Fogleman being checked out from the infield care center, but still did not get the interviews from other contenders like Tyler Hill or Keith McGee, at least not that I have seen. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, because I haven't seen those on there, at least not on the day of. Unfortunate. These drivers, they live and die by the amount of exposure they get. There is an attitude, especially from certain personalities, that it's participation trophies to talk about drivers that are not able to compete up front, even when there's not much else to happen and they have open air time to actually fill it with something. That's been the narrative that I've heard from somebody in the industry on that. I'm not happy about that. I think that this definitely shows how difficult it is for these guys. And now, even in this situation where they do get a good run and where they are up there, still not making time for it to cut away to college football. Now, I'm no college football fan, so I will admit that that's not something that I'm not, I'm particularly knowledgeable about. But I would think that, the storylines of all these different drivers that are pulling off this incredible feat, that's probably a bit more compelling than the opening minutes of this game. You could at least move that to another network. Lord knows these networks have any number of sister channels. Move things around. That's the way these things happen. I know that people are going to question that, questioning the relative popularity of college football or these particular teams versus the Truck Series. But it's also cause and effect. If you put a little bit more effort into it and you show and you recognize really how significant this was, especially for people like Tyler Hill, like the efforts there for Tate Fogleman, like Keith McGee, these other drivers, then people do end up caring. You reap what you sow, and when you just don't, when you just don't put it out there and you treat it like it's unimportant and it's not interesting, and you just can't move heaven and earth to make sure that this happens, it becomes unimportant. It becomes irrelevant, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then it just you just do it over and over again. We've seen this out of Fox so many times, especially in the Truck Series. That race at Martinsville a couple of years ago. Other cases with this. Things really need to be reevaluated here. And of course, this is nothing new being discussed on the show here. Certainly in the Truck Series in particular. It's just been utterly lacking, So again, another black mark on that one. I hate it for those guys. I would have loved to be there to get those quotes. That's always something. Whenever I'm over at the track there, I try to keep an eye on what's happening at the end of the race there. And if somebody's getting a good run, I want to be able to kind of meet up with that driver as soon as I could. Definitely that was the case with what happened with Tyler Hill after the unfortunate situation they had at the end of the Las Vegas race. And kudos again to any reporters out there at the Talladega track that were trying to follow up on those stories as well. Hopefully those quotes and that information does get out there more. Not all these teams have the access to enough PR to make sure that information gets out there. So appreciative of the people who are doing the work, and definitely not happy about those who are not. But on the Xfinity Series side, we did get the interview with Brandon Brown, and we did get the exposure with that. Despite a number of massive pileups there at the end of this. One of the most scary, of course, being the one with Noah Gragson towards the end of it. And it did show, kudos again to NBC on this, for showing that there was no contact that actually triggered the accident between Jeb Burton and the car in front of him there. And then the big pileup that ensued after that. But the result was the same. Gragson hit by several other cars in the field. And since they were battling for the lead at the time, unfortunately eliminated a lot of competitors, both the big teams out there and smaller teams that were kind of punching above their weight in the race itself, but dropping further back in the lineup. Among those that did make it through, again, Jordan Anderson continuing on his doubleheader, finishing in the 5th spot there. Josh Berry, Joe Graff Jr., the last place finisher at Vegas, started last in this race, was at the back of the field, worked his way into mid-pack pretty quickly, it seemed like, during the broadcast, and was able to position himself to get a 10th place run out of this. Fantastic run for him there. Ryan Sieg, Jay Buford just on the outside of it. How about Blaine Perkins? Kudos to him, the winner of stage 2, and a great effort for Our Motorsports. I can imagine they're at this very moment printing a big picture of the 02 and the 23 helping each other to the finish of that stage there, racing each other for the win right to the stripe there at the same time. I would plaster that on the wall of my shop if that were me. But fantastic effort for the Our Motorsports team. That 23 car in particular seems to be the absolute rocket ship out there. It seems like no matter who they put in there, it's been able to just get immediately fantastic runs. We've talked about how It's really turned around Ty Dillon's season after he had an absolutely horrible start to the year with Joe Gibbs racing injury. He has really gotten his feet back under him. We saw Tyler Reddick finish second with Homestead, although that ended up being a disqualification, but still had a great run there at the same time. And now Blaine Perkins, who had some great mid-pack runs at Phoenix, now building it up here and having a good show this time around. If memory serves, I think I remember Ryan Vargas kind of looking at the 23 last week and predicting some good runs out of him here. And that was certainly the case this time around. But Perkins ended up finishing in the 13th spot. Joey Gase, so happy that he's been able to recover from that serious accident that he had last week at Las Vegas. Great reports that he was able to be cleared to run both the Xfinity race yesterday and the Cup race whenever it's going to be this week. Both of them for smaller teams there. This time around, bringing apparently one of his or Rick Ware's Fords over to the Jimmy Means team to help them out, much like Means running the Rick Ware Toyota last week for Carson Ware. Joey Gase getting a 15th place finish there was fantastic for him, and really kudos to him as well. Of course, it's not too long ago, as you remember, when Gase actually had that top 5 finish for Means in one of Means' cars, despite serious overheating issues in the final laps. So a bit of shades of that as well. And I think Gase really knew that this was a race that he wanted to make sure that he made so that he'd have a good performance and keep improving his stock going forward as he tries to get some other runs and also some other Cup Series runs. So we'll see what he does in the number 53 car in the Cup race, whether it's tomorrow or whenever that's going to be later this week. Tommy Joe Martins in the 18th spot. Santino Ferrucci still finished 17th despite getting some damage in the Gragson accident. Seemed like he had some pretty good right front damage after that one. Good finish there. JJ Yaley starting in the 38th spot, finishing in 16th. A nice bit of recovery after he had that ECR engine in the Rick Ware 17 last week. They got in the big pileup. This time avoiding some damage in this one and getting a good finish there. Garrett Smithley, Kyle Weatherman also in the top 20 here. But further back, struggles again for David Starr. The number 61 car had a loose plug wire, had to come down for an unscheduled stop. The crew looked under the hood, made some repairs, sent him back out there, but the car sounded good for a little bit and then dropped the RPMs again and fell back in the lineup. Interesting kind of situation there because you have between him and Justin Haley for the pass-through penalty with the decal infraction. I'd love to learn more about what exactly it was. If they, I guess NASCAR really scrutinizes like how thick the decals are, or how many coats are covering them, or I don't even, or if the decals are placed in a different spot. I'd love to learn more about what exactly this infraction was because it's so bizarre. But I know with with the car, with the laser inspection and all that other stuff that goes on these days, no stone is left unturned. There's very little that has to really that's really left up to the imagination in the process here. But regardless, led to a rather interesting last place battle at the beginning, where Haley was back out on the lead lap, running by himself, trying to hold off the leaders, while also catching up to the draft of Starr, who had dropped back from the pack with his earlier mentioned loose plug wire issue. Both of them catching each other right when the leaders caught them. Starr drops back in the pack. Haley latches onto the leaders and defends his spot for the lucky dog when the stage ended. But unfortunately, Starr eliminated from the race soon after. Tried to get back out when Allmendinger and Sam Mayer had a very scary accident in the corner there. Both of them eliminated in that accident. But unfortunately, by that point, the 66 was about to declare itself out. I think NASCAR confirmed the 66 was out after that accident. But basically, they were already kind of loading up at that point from what it sounded like on the radio. And the 61 ends up now taking the lead in that Xfinity Series NASCAR championship with just a few races left to go. Starr, the first driver this season to have 3 last place finishes this year. The other 2 coming, I believe, at Dover and Atlanta. The Atlanta one was where he relieved CJ McLaughlin after some heat exposure or heat exhaustion in that race. And Starr actually was able to finish that race as well. So in this particular case, no indication that Starr was a relief driver for anybody else. It looked like he was going to run the Cup Series race this week. There was late breaking news on that. Apparently, according to a post that Carl Long made earlier today on his Facebook page, that a sponsorship deal had fallen through for the 66 team, and Starr was not able to make what would have been his first Cup Series start ever at Talladega. Instead, that ride will go to James Davison, who was going to be the odd man out of the game of musical chairs over Rick Ware Racing's 4-car lineup. Ends up essentially being a 5th Rick Ware entry, although in what's basically, according to Sebastian LaForge, kudos to him again for his great information on the chassis that the Carl Long team provides. Their workhorse former Toyota team that's been shifted into a Ford with a Ford body on it in recent races. So that's going to be the car that Davison will run this week. Also interesting to note that it's actually the second different paint scheme that he's run that's actually been designed in honor of the upcoming 80th anniversary of the terrible attacks on Pearl Harbor in 1941. He ran the other paint scheme back at Bristol, the number 15 car, but this time around running with the 66. It'd be interesting to know if that's how that deal came together and how it's particularly been linked with Davison. I know that certainly people in Australia and that area, of course, had a major presence in the Pacific Theater during World War II. You look back to the war of the Battle of Guadalcanal, and a lot of Australian ships were actually lost in a lot of those battles down there. I don't know if I'd be interested to know if there's some particular tie that Davison has with that, whether it's family members or anything like that, or if it's just something that came together with the Rick Ware team itself. But again, another interesting story would be what to follow up on. Didn't hear anything about that in Vegas. I think Davison was running that weekend. I'm trying to remember. But I didn't talk to him there that weekend, but that would be kind of an interesting story to follow up on here. But your last place finisher again, David Starr in the Xfinity Series at the back of the field there. Sam Mayer, Landon Castle, and Bailey Curry with a broken drive shaft on pit road, running him out to the bottom 5. Unfortunate turnaround after he had that 13th place run at Vegas. Seemed like he was trying to get a good run here. Unfortunately, wasn't able to follow it up at Talladega. So we'll see what his deal is going to be in these next final few rounds of the season coming up. Oh, yes. I hope you guys like the Dave Marcus shirt here, too. I was bringing this out. This is actually just a reprint of the original one there. I like how they put the autograph here on the corner there. Back when Dave Marcus made his last original scheduled Cup start at Daytona, the 2002 Daytona 500, had an early engine failure, but the car stayed in one piece. And Marcus has still been using that car to kind of set new land speed records and whatnot, much like we've seen out of the Keselowski family and their number 92 out there. So it's just interesting where all that shakes out. But this is always a scheme that's always really stood out here. For a reprint, I thought they did actually a pretty decent job on this here. It was really interesting paint scheme that he ran back that weekend. The silver car there, especially all those consecutive years that he started the Daytona 500. The natural rhythm of the average Ken Squire starting grid always seemed to say, and Dave Marcus rounds out the field. And so that was always a big part of it there too. The plan was, of course, to wear this for Talladega today because, of course, Marcus, I believe, being a past winner there, if memory serves, but also, having some standout runs, even in the latter years of his career, running the Real Tree 71, led some opening laps of the very race that Dale Earnhardt scored his last victory in. And of course, after the tragic accident that claimed Earnhardt's life, Marcus basically pointed to that as the reason that he decided to hang it up the very next year. But that was certainly the case at that point. Certainly going to be interesting to see if we, but what the story is going to be for the Cup Series race, not sure. Don't really have a whole lot to go off of here today. I was listening to James Davison's radio during the pace lap. Seemed like they were having radio issues. He also didn't have a water bottle in the car. So there's other stuff they're trying to get together. They certainly now have time to get that all straightened out. As you saw the 66 car being pushed into the garage area with everybody else during the broadcast here today. But we'll find out what's going on with one race to the next year. But lots to look forward to in the Cup Series race. I guess the starting grid video will have a little bit longer shelf life than it usually does. Thank you guys again to the guys over in the Livestream who specifically requested that one. This is now the second straight year I've done the starting grid for this race. We're very close to our next Patreon goal, at which point there will be another poll in the Patreon where everybody can vote on which starting grid for a Cup, Xfinity, or Truck Series race I will do. And again, now that we're nearing the end of the season, I've extended that. So now It could be for any race either later this year or next season. Now that we have now the Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series schedule set. So it could be anytime. It could be all the way to Phoenix next year if you want it to be. And that will be something that will be honored for sure. So keep an eye out for that. We're very close to it, though. We might actually hit it before the end of the year. So if you're interested in that, check out patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. And thank you to those of you who joined, especially through our Las Vegas weekend. We got a lot of great new support that weekend. I really can't tell you enough, like how much that really helps being able to cover more of these races and produce more of this content out here that you guys enjoy checking out. So we'll have some more information on that and everything coming up. The new design for the next magnet has already been decided. I mailed out the magnet to the winner, Nate924. Congratulations for winning the drawing for the magnet from the trip to Vegas. And actually, the magnet still had dust on it from the unpaved road that we were riding up on the way to the Bodie Ghost Town there. So that was still on there. I was coming off of my fingers and I was putting it in the envelope. So I got that shipped out on its way. Real a lot to kind of look up from there. Let's see. What else can we talk about here? We'll jump into trivia here in a little bit if you're just joining in here today. Thank you again for joining in as we're doing this show kind of a little bit last minute this time around. So we'll find out. Atlantic Castle is going to be holding last place for at least the next 24 hours, or depending on whenever they get this race started. I'm hoping they get it in tomorrow, obviously, but really looking at the forecast, there were some people talking about things as late as Thursday. I hope it's not that situation. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to be able to stay down there. This is one thing that's made it really challenging in terms of picking a race to really cover. We very nearly had this situation covering Darlington, the Southern 500 a couple of years ago, when they had that hurricane coming up into the area. And basically it was either get it in that night or they're just not going to get it in at all, or have to push it to another week or something. That's why that race ended so late at night at that point. But yeah, that was definitely another situation there. But yeah, hearing about rain for tomorrow, and not exactly sure what's going on. I was hoping, again, that they get at least halfway in. But if their goal is to get the full distance in, I guess you can't really be too critical with them on that, especially for a playoff race. Now, playoff race has been cut off before. We had a race to the finish in Texas that Carl Edwards won, and it even ended up kind of creating a situation with the last place battle where Josh Wise had dropped out. And the number of caution laps spelled the difference between whether or not he was going to finish last in that race, and ended up being a situation there. So you never know what's going to happen from one week to the next. But in the meantime, next coverage that we're planning on doing track Phoenix for the championship weekend, which would be Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. We'll also be there for the ARCA event or the Menard Series event there that weekend. Don't really have any too much coverage planned on that. But we'll certainly be there for that and pick up any information we can along the way during that weekend. And that will, of course, close out our 2021 season. Yeah. And again, those of you just coming in here, of course, we did mention at the very beginning of the thing with John Wes Townley. Again, condolences to his family, friends, and fans. I don't have any additional information. I do not want to speculate on it. I don't want to even discuss something that's not really directly on point with that there. So hopefully we just have more information on it and find out what's going on. But what we do know, of course, is that he did pass away at age 31 just yesterday, one day before the anniversary of his victory in the Las Vegas Truck Series race, that iconic, or at least very prolific, Zaxby's chicken machine there that he had run for so much of his career. But we'll certainly find out there at the same time. Okay, so yeah, we're going to do trivia now. We'll jump into that. Thank you again for those of you tuning in here as we did a bit of a last-minute show here. We got the typical machine here. If you have any other questions from anything from Saturday that we haven't talked about that you'd like me to talk about, certainly mention it in the chat. And we'll just kind of keep it open-ended here. And we'll probably do about an hour show here tonight. We'll just kind of see how things play out and go from there. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll start off by picking our categories here. Categories again are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your categories: NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. I don't actually have something ready for show and tell yet today, but we'll certainly look into that there. But we'll certainly talk about other things. I will tell you this. I think I teased this last week. I do have a video coming up in middle of this month. Actually, I'm planning it for about 2 weeks from now. Just under 2 weeks from now, there's going to be a new video on this channel. So more content is going to be coming up. This is a very big project. I actually was kind of reworking it here this time. The trailer will be posted first to the Patreon. I want to make sure that they get a chance to see that first before it's publicly revealed here. Yeah, that's going to be another. There is going to be another long form video coming up here this month. It is not going to be a Rise of the Field Fillers episode. That is still in the works for Hermie Sadler. I'm also working on some short form videos. I actually got a request from one of the people who joined the Patreon back in Las Vegas for a video, and I think it's a good one to follow up on. So that'll be something I'll be working on here. We're just now this week. I'll be perfectly honest. I'll be kind of just recovering from Las Vegas most of this week here, downloading the pictures, kind of resorting stuff, fulfilling the Patreon obligations. Got that handled this week. Had a big mail day over on Friday. Got that sent out. I'm glad to see that some of the diecast already got delivered. Actually, just got a message earlier today about that. So we have that. If you or yourself are interested in joining that, again, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. And again, more videos coming up here, including one in a couple weeks. Those of you who are in the $5 and up levels of the Patreon will have advanced access to that video as well. But in the meantime, of course, posted the starting grid video, which will still be good whenever the race does actually start, whether it's tomorrow or not. For those of you who, again, joined in a bit late, I have work Monday to Friday this week. So live tweeting updates are probably going to be off the table. Depending on when the race starts. Well, certainly. I mean, if they don't have lights at the track, it's going to be over by the time I get back from work. But we'll do a post race show whenever after the hopefully the same evening after it ends. I mean, by the time I get back, I mean they cut the Xfinity race off. I think about 4:00 our time. That's about the time I get off work. So we'll do a show to kind of tie all that up, and that'll most likely be about the 5 or 5:30 time frame there. Depending on how that works out, probably between 5 and 6 would be about the start of that. I will post updates on that on the Twitter feed as we go along here. And we'll talk about the last place finisher. We'll talk about the cup action and preview what to expect for the Roval next week as well. That'll be in another live stream this week. So you'll get 2 streams for the price of 1. So you'll have that coming up as well. Beast of Metal, thank you for the super chat there as well. I noticed Jimmy Spencer finished last in the archival race NBC used as filler, 2001 EA Sports 500. There you are. Actually, let me pull that up here. Good call. We got to get that statistic up here. And I can pull it up on my stats page. And there it is, October 21st, 2001. Jimmy Spencer's 6th last place finish, had an engine failure after 18 laps of the race after starting 25th on the grid. Spencer and his teammate that at the time, Todd Bodine, driving for Travis Carter Enterprises, this a year after Darrell Waltrip's retirement. Spencer was Waltrip's teammate for that last season in 2000. But then in 2001, they're running the old Kmart cars before all that scaled back there. But that was the 6th last place finish for Jimmy Spencer in his career. Jimmy Spencer, of course, the subject of one of the most recent episodes of the NASCAR Scene Vault podcast, as well as I believe Junior's podcast as well. Some more information on that coming up as well. But yeah, 2001 race. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Ultimate 23 Dragon. I know you're not happy with what happened to Johnny Benson on the final lap of that one, but amazing racing. I don't know why they started the race so late in it after the Casey Atwood incident. But they could have actually, a lot of, we talk about great super speedway racing, the sound, the fields, and everything else out there. Really exciting to see. Kudos also from one YouTube channel to another. Kudos to Emp Lemon for his video on Talladega. I thought it was a very comprehensive and interesting take on the action from that. I liked, well, I won't spoil it, but there is some overlap a bit with my video on Phoenix Racing, of course, and James Finch in that 09 car. I thought he did a very good job working that into the story there. But that was always an interesting way to tie that together there. That was one of my favorite episodes to put together. The field fillers one. It had its own challenges along the way. Actually, I think of all the episodes, that's probably one where most of the information, there's like even more information about his efforts in racing came up after the video was done. But it was still good to talk to him for that project, and before Jake Finch was running the Snowball Derby and everything last year. So that was kind of cool too. Let's see. It's dry. It's a Mickey rain delay. Oh yeah, goodness. Well, see, there you go. But yeah, pretty rough deal there for both of the efforts there. Who do we have here leading the category here? Let's see. We got, let's see, tracks, drivers, teams, wild card tracks, drivers seems like a few here. I'm seeing a few for drivers. Is that the one leading? I think that's the one we have. Drivers is leading with 3. Yeah, I see that one for wild card. No worries. Let's see. We'll do drivers, and maybe we'll wander over to wild card afterward here. Let's see. We got that. Okay. So, okay, here we go. So, first question here for our trivia segment. What 2 consecutive years did Davey Allison win at Phoenix? Don't look it up. Try to guess it there. What 2 consecutive years did Davey Allison win at Phoenix? Yeah, Tom Bodine wrecked in that race too. That one also. Ask about the favorite one-win wonder. Yeah, I mean that would be probably still Jerry Nadeau's win in Atlanta for sure. Although it seemed like in his career he was going to get a lot more than just that one. Yeah, certainly one to look at too. Jason Stacy, I saw your question there about Brett Bodine racing featured in the Rise of the Field Filler series. I feel like we've actually almost had Brett Bodine already in this series just from how he keeps popping up in all of them. And believe me, I was looking for something to tie in with Carl Long. I don't know whether it was a time where he bumped him out of the field or something, because Carl had some great comprehensive details about all of his qualifying runs that was archived there. That's one of the reasons that video was as long as it was, just because he had himself had a ton of information, and then he gave a nice, really long interview. So I just, there was very little that left on the cutting room floor on that one. I thought Andy Belmont's was going to be 2 parts for sure, too. Oh, LLRT. Yeah. No, thanks for talking back in Vegas there. I know we were talking briefly there at that point, but I know you were pretty busy there, but I appreciated meeting up. If you're at Phoenix, and maybe if you're less busy, I'd be happy to talk more there. But hope you're safe driving out there for sure at the same time. But yeah. All right. So we got guesses for 90, 91, 91, 92, 89 to 90, 89 to 90. All right. Let me get that question again here. Whoop. Hang on. Let's pull it up again. What 2 consecutive years did Davey Allison win at Phoenix? The answer is indeed 91 and 92. 92, of course, being the win right before the Hooters 500 that put him back in the point lead. A point lead that unfortunately he would not hold at the end of that day. But he pulled basically a Denny Hamlin in that situation there from a couple of years ago, winning the penultimate race, but unfortunately falling short in the championship, whose story is, of course, very well known. Also, that Phoenix race was the last time the number 24 was run by a team other than Hendrick Motorsports. I believe it was Butch Gilliland running it as a West Series competitor, and finished back in the order there. So the very last race before the Atlanta race, where Jeff Gordon, of course, made his debut, a bit of a changing of the guard there further back in the pack. That's the great thing with NASCAR. You never know when history exactly is going to happen. Sometimes it could happen just right under your nose, and that was certainly the case back then in 1992. All righty. Yes, I believe Butch Gilliland is David's father, if I'm remembering correctly. Visit. You're going to stop in Tombstone on the way home. We were looking into doing Tombstone, but I know it's kind of far, like southeast from it. Like we're going back up northwest, so that might be a little out of our way. But yeah, we're going to definitely have to stop by there, the hauler there for you. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver is AJ Foyt's godson? Let me read that one again. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver, and again, this is late 90s, what NASCAR Winston Cup driver is AJ Foyt's godson? That is our next question. All righty. Official NASCAR encyclopedia. There's areas of expertise, and this thing captures it pretty well. There's ones like I was completely caught flat-footed a couple races ago where somebody was asking, like, how much the tires cost. I'm like, well, I know that they used to cost for JD McDuffie, but like I don't really keep track of that now. And it caught me blindsided there. But I appreciate people filling me in on that. That basically it's grand to set, at least the way it sounded like to me. But that was the case. But yeah, things like that with like teams and drivers and stuff like that. That's kind of more what's in here. Like if it comes up with that, I try to harken that back as much as possible. So that's kind of the situation. Let me read the question again here. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver is AJ Foyt's godson? I got 52 people in here. Man, really didn't expect. I expected very few people in here today with the rain delay. I figured. Well, I guess we got in before the Tom Brady game tonight, so I definitely want to do this later because I know that's going to get people. Steve Letarte sounded like he was 1 foot out the door there talking about that game. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver is AJ Foyt's godson? Hey there, Lummox, a hired hoodlum. Good name. Is it 850 each? Is that 850 for a set, or is it? See, that's the thing. It always seems like it's a different number. Is it like, okay? Gosh, if it's 850 per tire, oh my god. I did just show up, so you may have some coming late. Yeah, that's fine. No, we're staying on here for a bit longer, so we're doing trivia now, so we'll get plenty more. I'll read the question one more time. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver is AJ Foyt's godson? We got guesses. We got Larry Foyt. We got Tony Stewart, Buckshot Jones. Several of these. Tony Stewart, we mentioned, Dale Jr. The answer is John Andretti. God bless him. Late great John Andretti. It still does not feel right not seeing his name in the drivers' lineups here. John Andretti is indeed the correct answer. Harry Loomis, I think you were the first on that one. So there you go. All righty. Next question here. Who was the first third-generation driver on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit? Who was the first third-generation driver on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit? Give that one some thought. There's some options there. I'm going to pull up some NFL scores here at the same time. We'll turn this into a little bit of Sports Center here at the same time. What do we got later? Okay, I don't want that. Let's see. Green Bay up 14-7. Let's see. The Raiders. Oh, the Raiders are Monday night. Wow. Okay. Okay. Where are we? Bills playing today? Holy Toledo. Bills just stomped the heck out of the Houston Texans 40-0. I have to get my jersey back out here. Circling the wagons big time. Let's see. We got some scores here. We got Indianapolis Colts 27 over the Dolphins 17. Washington football team beating the Falcons. Looks like 34-30. Cleveland over Lastboro's Minnesota Vikings 14-7. Right. My goodness. Okay. Who is the first third-generation driver on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit? Alrighty, and the answer, it is indeed Kyle Petty. Kyle Petty is the correct answer. Kyle Petty is the correct answer. Is it Noe Chavez? Oh, Floydian 06. Oh, no. Charles Peterson Jr. No, hang on. A lot of you got it. My goodness. Matt Parsons. I think you were the first one. Several of you got it right on. Those are good guesses. Talking about Dale Jr., talking about these other ones here. There you go. Kyle Petty, indeed the correct answer. Okay, here we go. Here's another question. How many of Tim Richmond's 8 starts in 1987 did he win? How many of Tim Richmond's 8 starts in 1987 did he win? Is it 5:20 Pacific or 5:20 Eastern? Yeah. I don't know. Figure that out later. How many of Tim Richmond's 8 starts in 1987 did he win? Is the question. We got guesses for 2 and 4 and 3. Jay Walker, the master of lightning and blabber. There we go. Yep, Ryan Moore, I share your frustrations for sure. How many of Tim Richmond's 8 starts in 1987 did he win? And the answer is 2. Pocono and Riverside. 2 is the correct answer. The final 2 of his career. Consecutive weeks, I think. I think it was at least consecutive races. Maybe it wasn't consecutive weeks, but yeah. I recall Denny Hamlin was trying to get like the same streak of consecutive Pocono wins that Tim Richmond had, but I remember he fell short of that a couple of years ago. That was like way back in like 2006, 2007, thereabouts. He swept the season in 06 when he won his first race there. But yeah. Here we go. Next question. How many drivers had a higher career win percentage than David Pearson? How many drivers had a higher career win percentage than David Pearson? You're 1 for 4 today, Frank. Okay. It's all good. Sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield. There's a it's a sliding scale of challenge on this one. Okay, we got 2, we got 3, we got 4, we got 0, we got specific names: Tim Flock and Herb Thomas. All righty. How many drivers had a higher career win percentage than David Pearson? And the answer is 2. 2 indeed. And you're right, Tim Flock and Herb Thomas. Here, but 2 is the correct answer. I thought for sure it was going to say 0, but it does say 2. Does it count Mario Andretti? Good question. Very good question. I mean, this is as of the late 90s, so I mean, I'm sure it would be different reading these days, but yeah, 2 is the correct answer. Zachary Leffler, right from the start, you got it there. And several of you got that one, so that's good. Yeah, 2. There you go. All right, we'll move to the wild card here because I saw that one got a lot of votes. So we'll do a few questions there. We'll probably wrap up the show here for today. All righty. Okay. Here's a good question. Okay. How many degrees does a driver spin in a bootlegger's turn? How many degrees does a driver spin in a bootlegger's turn? That is our question. So we're looking for a number again. Your geometry experts will get this one here. How many degrees does a driver spin in a bootlegger's turn? You got the Smokey and the Bandit car out in the field this week, so I guess there's good timing with that as well. Gorgeous. Hopefully the sun comes out for whenever they run this race, because I think that car will really look nice out there. I think they did a really nice job on that. How many degrees does a driver spin in a bootlegger's turn? Spin. That's weird. How many degrees does a driver spin in a bootlegger's turn? I guess turn would be accurate, but maybe it would just make the question redundant. So they get kind of that issue. Like a J turn? Yeah, I don't know. Tough call. Alrighty, 180, 180, 270, 540. Yeah, what's a bootlegger's turn? It's the first I've heard of it. Alrighty, and the answer is indeed 180. So it's pulling a U-turn, pulling the old U-turn there. So one correct. So it's a purposely loss of control. Well, basically, yeah. But you're going back the way you came. So I guess that's the revenuers or something. All right. Okay, here we go. Here's one for Randy the plumber here. Here's the next question. What's the size limit of coolers fans can bring to most tracks? Now again, as of the late 90s. What's the size limit of it's actually in here. What's the size limit of coolers fans can bring to most tracks? I'm going to assume it's like cubic inches, but maybe it's the outer dimensions, or I don't know what they're. Well, here I'll look at the answer to see what it's measuring. Okay, so it's asking for like width. So yeah, it's not asking for cubic inches. It's like how wide it can be. So there's your guess on that one. All right. Deere Johnson perfected it. Exactly. We got 19 ounces, 14 inches, 18 by 18 by 18, 64 ounces. A bootleg turn is a driving maneuver intended to reverse the direction of travel of a forward-moving automobile by 180 degrees in a minimum amount of time while staying within the width of a two-lane road. Okay. Did not know that. That makes sense, though. A two-lane road specifically. So if you had a wider road, or if you tried doing it like in a single road, you drove into a ditch, it wouldn't be a bootlegger's turn. Did not know that. What's the size limit of coolers fans can bring to most tracks as of the late 90s? And again, we're going by inches. That's the question. So not ounces, not cubic inches, just inches. All right. The size limit of coolers fans can bring to most tracks. The answer is 14 inches. I actually saw a few of you got that one. 14 inches. Also 23 Dragon, you got it. Zachary Leffer, you put 14 by 14 by 14, so that counts. Yeah, 14 inches. Yeah, we got some good questions here in this category. Maybe we've reached the bottom of the list here. Where can race fans try their hand at broadcasting a race? Where can race fans try their hand at broadcasting a race is the next question. 200 inches by 800 by 7,600. Yeah, there you go. At least it's not centimeters. Then we can confuse it even more. Where can race fans try their hand at broadcasting a race? I know that's a pretty vague question, but there you go. Apparently there's a place for that. All right. The MRN Experience, Daytona USA, YouTube. Yeah, there you go. Fox booth, college. Yeah. Where can race fans try their hand at broadcasting a race? I actually tried to apply for journalism school. I don't know if I ever told anybody this. We had one in Berkeley, and I guess it was just too selective or whatever. But yeah, I mean, but I remember they were telling me that they would teach you the fundamentals of like, writing a story and interviewing and research and stuff like that. But they didn't have like the thing where they would train you to like, do like TV news, like how to raise your eyebrow or how to have like the proper diction. Like there was some limits to it. Like they had some kind of studio thing in the back, but I think it was more, I don't know, it was practice reading a teleprompter or something. I don't know what it was, but it was weird. It would have been cool, but no, they turned my application down. But oh well. That was at a time that I think I hadn't even started. I don't think I even started my old NASCAR karaoke page at the time. I didn't have much to point at. I was interested in it, but I mean I didn't have like a beat or anything. And NASCAR wasn't until 2009. This is like 2005, so this is like ancient history. But yeah, where can race fans try their hand at broadcasting a race? We got all kinds of questions. NASCAR Cafe, AOL, KGB headquarters, MRN intern. Yeah, there you go. The answer is Daytona, USA. I guess they have a thing there for that. Well, hey, if that's still there, I got something to add on to the jolly old the list, the travel list for sure. 3 wide, 4 wide. That would be fun. It's challenging. I've tried that a little bit here and there, like pulling up like a race maybe where it wasn't very good and trying to make it better. I don't know. I think there's an extra element that helps when you're actually there and you don't know what's going to happen. It's hard to replicate, but who knows? I mean, I'll tell you, every time like I'm at a track and like I'm standing at pit road and the engines fire up, you kind of feel, you can kind of hear in your head like somebody like John Kernan or Dr. Jerry Punch leading up. It's like 2 times a year, Bruton Smith puts on this show, and it's like it just clicks right in because it just fits in that moment. And when you don't really hear that these days, it just something's missing a little bit. Like maybe that'll come back out. What driver? Oh, here we go. Next question. What driver has a pet raccoon named Sitgo? We really are the interesting questions. What driver has a pet raccoon named Sitgo? Again, as of the late 90s. Yeah, announcing would be fun. I'm with you, Frank. That would be cool. I guess it's from Morgan Shepherd, Jeff Burton, Michael Waltrip. See a lot of different Sitgo drivers, but here it is. Yeah. What driver has a pet raccoon named Sitgo? Sitgo, just like the fuel and oil company. Sitgo is indeed the name. Yeah, pet raccoon. Yeah, new to me too. That's yeah. What driver has a pet raccoon named Sitgo? Shepard loved his wild animals. There was that clip with him and the squirrels and all that, right? We did that for the Field of Fillers episode. Again, that was another one, much like the James Finch one, where there's just so much material. I mean, I know that in the interviews I did with him, we were just scratching the surface, but it was still cool to pull it in there, though. The Hermie Sadler one, I think, is going to be challenging too. There's going to be so much. There's so much material out there. When I was going through like some of my typical sources to like find stuff, there's so much Hermie Sadler stuff out there. I think it's going to be. I'm hoping to still get an interview with him. I haven't arranged that yet, but we'll work that out. But that'll be cool. What driver has a pet raccoon named Sitgo? The answer is indeed Morgan Shepherd. Morgan Shepherd is the correct answer. Jeff Burton, because we gave it to him. There we go. There you go. Yeah, I like that. Michael Waltrip. See, yeah, you can tell everybody's relative age depending on which driver they pick. Because, if you remembered like Jeff Burton in the Sitgo car, or you remembered Elliott Sadler in the Sitgo car, or you remembered Michael Waltrip in the Sitgo car, or Morgan Shepherd. I'm surprised there wasn't anybody in here to talk about Dale Jarrett or Neil Bonnet. We could go even further back if we wanted to. But yeah, Sitgo, one of the most iconic paint jobs. Love, especially the one that Shepherd had like in his last win. I think that was like the peak tier paint scheme. I actually got the hat. I got the hat from the Wood Brothers. Maybe I'll wear that for the next show because I thought that was really hip. But yeah, they did a good job on that. Yeah, the one with like the red roof and it's like the white body is like a red stripe at the bottom. Like the one he had between like 93 and like 95. I think that was like the peak Sitco paint job in my mind. The other ones are pretty good too. The 91 one's okay, but with the logo sideways. But I think, yeah, the other one there with the stripes. Oh, gorgeous. Gorgeous car. Alrighty. Okay. So we'll do one more question here to wrap up the show for tonight. Oh wow, we're ways into it here. So we'll do this. Let me see if we get a good question. Yeah, here's a good question to wrap up on. So last question for the evening, folks. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver beat then champ Joe Amato in his first drag race? Let me read that again. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver beat then champ Joe Amato in his first drag race? Yeah, think about that. Here's a good one. I'll read that again there. Don't look it up. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver beat then champ Joe Amato in his first drag race? Joe Amato. Yeah, those are the ones here. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver beat then champ Joe Amato in his first drag race? All right, I guess this is for Richard Petty, John Andretti, Cale Yarborough. Yeah, Petty did have that. Yeah, you're right. You're right there, Air Josh. Talking about the time that he was running in drag racing, but was Joe Amato the champion at the time? I guess that's a critical element there. Ken Schuler, thanks for joining the chat here. We talk about a potential end of the season race at Talladega. It's possible, but I guess the problem is you're going to have issues with rain at that time of the year, just like you are this weekend. Again, I think Talladega's dates are invariably in the rainy season, which is just much of the year. It seems like anything's possible, but I don't see I really don't see them running the finale at a track that doesn't have lights. I mean, that's gonna be the critical element. And if it's just going to cost a prohibitive amount to do it, I think that pretty much strikes that out. I like having Daytona as the cutoff race. If we have to have the playoffs, I think that's a great venue, and we saw a lot of great racing this year. But I think having the season end at a super speedway is maybe a bit too much, especially if it's a winner take all thing. I'm not sure if Phoenix is the best venue either. I think Homestead probably was a better venue for it. But again, maybe you'll handle better with the next gen car, and I think they're playing with that idea by keeping it there next year. So we'll certainly see. Alrighty. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver beat then champ Joe Amato in his first drag race? The answer is indeed, once again, the late John Andretti. John Andretti, the correct answer. You got it. John Andretti, the correct answer. Something I completely forgot to mention, and of course, we talked about the schedule being released. Am I excited about the Truck Series running at Sears Point? You bet I am. I am absolutely ready for that next year, and we're already starting to put our schedule together for 2022. Now with the schedule up, at the very least, we're going to be looking at the Clash at the Coliseum to kick off the year. Fontana 2 weeks later for what may be the last race on the Big Oval. And again, Sears Point in June for both the Truck Series and the Cup Series. I've never actually been to any of the Truck Series races they had years ago. It used to be a standalone event on the October weekend. But this time around, it's going to be part of the Cup weekend, and that's going to be fantastic. So guys like Andy Lally and Cody Ware are already excited about it. Are we going to get the return of some road ringers like Boris said, who was a past winner there, or Ron Fellows? Who knows? I think anything's kind of wide open, especially if they want to be able to compete in a race where they don't have to worry about points as much. So that'll be something exciting to find out. So lot to look at there, but it's going to be really, really interesting to see. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. That'll do it for the show here for today. Our next show is going to be whenever the Cup Series race concludes this week. Hopefully they get it in tomorrow. If it is, the show will be probably it'll start around 5 or 6 that evening. I'll have an update on Twitter before that show starts. So stay tuned on @LastCarOnBrock. Make sure to follow the account if you haven't already for more updates. There will be another video that's going to be posted on this channel at the middle of this month. more information on that coming up. And those of you who are in the Patreon, you already know about that one. The trailer is going to drop for that very soon. Yeah, and then other than that, we'll talk about the Cup Series race. Again, condolences certainly to the family of John Wes Townley and also to Briggs Cunningham III. Difficult week with this on top of the services for Robin Miller that were completed earlier this weekend. But hopefully we'll have some more positive news and more exciting things to certainly talk about. We don't forget anybody. We race on and we remember everyone that came before. So hopefully we'll have a good race this week. Again, we probably won't have live updates there during the race, depending on when it starts and what day it is and everything. But we'll certainly do a wrap-up article and we'll do a wrap-up live stream to talk about it that evening. So stay tuned for that. Until then, have a safe week, everybody, and we'll talk to you whenever the track is dry enough for us to do so. So take care, everyone.